Hey everybody, welcome to a bonus episode of Tuesday Night Legacy. I am Eugene, but I will not be your commentator for this evening. We have a special commentator on, another player at the store, Bryson. He'll be taking over for me from here. Just wanted to jump in at the top of the video to let you know that if you guys like stuff like this, we'll try and get more of it onto the channel as the weeks go on. So without further ado, here is some Pauper content. Enjoy.
Hello and welcome to Thursday Night Pauper, brought to you by Spellhold Games. This evening we've got Eugene on your left piloting Jeskai Wildfire, and myself, Bryson, on the right piloting Esper Familiars. I won the die roll. Let's get this game going. Both of us are trying to extend the game and grind out the opponent. Eugene playing more of a tempo strategy, using cards such as Spell Stutter Sprite, Lightning Bolt, Galvanic Blast to interfere with my game plan, while I'm trying to extend the game until I can assemble a Sunscape Familiar on the field and leverage its reduced casting costs to rebuy Ghostly Flickers with Archaeomancer and assembling a multi-piece combo to eventually mill your opponent out with Sage Rose Denizen. Eugene playing a new card to the format, Dawnbreaker Cleric, which is a pretty powerful 1/3 for 2 that has 3 modes on it, 2 of which being very pertinent to the Pauper metagame, with Burn being on the rise and every Witch deck interacting with the graveyard in some way. And finally, I decided to commit a probe to the stack here, a 3-mana sorcery which has Kicker, and normally on its face value it's just a draw 3, discard 2, but if you kick it you can force your opponent to discard 2, which is pretty powerful when you're paying 2 mana for the effect with a familiar in play. Okay at 3 mana, allowing you to hunt down your familiar. Unfortunately, I am not that lucky, and I'm discording a Stonehorn Dignitary and probably a land. Oh, no, I foresee another card that gets juiced up by the inclusion of familiars in the deck. Eugene untapping, continuing his chip damage here with that Dawnbreaker Cleric. And most likely land go. Or looks like he didn't have a land. He's discarding a hand size. I move to untap, draw, and don't like too much what I'm seeing here. Decide that nothing wrong with drawing more cards. And I put a Consult the Necrosage on the stack, choosing the target player draws 2 cards, targeting myself. Okay at 3. Becomes very strong at 2, especially when you're making your opponent discard for 2. It's as close as you're going to get to him to Turok. Unfortunately, drawing a little too much there, having to discard Archaeomancer and Ghostly Flicker. And Eugene looking to leverage this opportunity with the Ephemerate. Me realizing how strong this Dawnbreaker Cleric is, because it can exile 2 of those juicy cards from my graveyard. So I have to deploy a Prohibit to stop that from happening, because Ephemerate would have hit twice due to its rebound effect. Incredibly strong card, like I said. Yep, speak of the devil, there it is. Successfully exiling that Ghostly Flicker from my graveyard, and most likely going to hit the Archaeomancer at Eugene's next upkeep. I'm over here trying to decide what to do. Figure there's not too much pressure. Play land, go. Eugene astutely ephemerating, targeting his what's his name? Dawnbreaker Cleric, exiling that Archaeomancer, whittling away at my life total and my resources. And now he plays his version of Archaeomancer, the Ardent Elementalist, which is a 4-mana 2/1, allowing him to rebuy an instant or sorcery. Ephemerate being a very powerful target in this deck. I have to respect this card, so I use a Soul Manipulation to counter the spell and buy back the Stonehorn Dignitary. Probably should have done that to pick up the Archaeomancer, but I figure he's got to have something that's more effective right now. So I here cast this, floating a white mana, because I'm looking to hit an Ephemerate to blink the Mole Drifter and accrue more advantage. Fortunately, I'm able to hit a Ghostly Flicker which is a good backup option, allowing me to flicker both the Muldrifter and the basic island, which will enter untapped, allowing me to float a mana. Hand full of cards now, with a Muldrifter establishing the skies. I decided to just make a land drop and discard the hand size. I think it's just a land. Two lands. Eugene now under a pretty tough situation here with 3 bounce lands in play. I've got quite a bit of mana. Realizing the Muldrifter's very powerful, has to eliminate that with that Galv Blast. Just chipping away there down to 14. Back on my turn. Luckily draw the Sunscape Familiar. And now the engine is on. All the numbers are flying across the screen. The value is so good. Time to start things off, probably with an Archaeomancer here. But looking like all this open mana Eugene has, I decide to back plan with the Stonehorn Dignitary, providing a big butt to stop the ground attacks, as well as that Eugene trying to figure out what to do here. Tough situation. He's really got to answer that familiar, otherwise it'll really take over the game. Looking like he's thinking about deploying a snap, but decides to just wait and leave up some interaction. Drawing that Mortuary Mired Muldrifter to gain more advantage, but Eugene astutely bolting the Muldrifter before I have an opportunity to draw into an Ephemerate. Casting a reduced cost Seagate Oracle, never a bad thing. Looking at the top 2 and picking the best one out of him. Eugene trying to snap his Spell Stutter to counter my Preordain. I respond with a Prohibit to counter the snap, preventing it from untapping the lands. Preordain, the classic top-bottom. And put a deep analysis on the stack. Eugene sees the writing on the walls, and we're off to game 2. Eugene starting us off, both keeping our 7s. Doing a little land go. Starting the game with a Augur of Bolas. Okay card, can sometimes whiff, but fortunately Eugene is able to hit something off of it. Playing his land drop, I was fortunate enough to curve out into a familiar, and Eugene was able to curve into his Cleansing Wildfire. So both of us have pretty ideal starts going along here. I untap, seeing this window of opportunity, decide to deploy a Godpharaoh's Faithful to edge out some more life gain and push the game farther, and evoke a Muldrifter to accrue more card advantage and pass the turn off to Eugene. Eugene astutely bolting the Sunscape Familiar, getting rid of my engine. So now everything got a lot worse in my hand. All things considered, nothing wrong with a simple land go. Or maybe considering casting the Seagate Oracle in hand, I think. It's okay in this position. Yeah. Gotta be hunting down for that Sunscape Familiar. Eugene had the answer with the counterspell, preventing the dig. Eugene tapping out. Oh man, new card here, Soul of Migration. Oh, with an Ephemerate. Yikes, that's 6 power in the air. And he can increase that by another 2 at his upkeep. Powerful cards here. I'm under some serious amount of pressure now. With no board wipes in the main. Just nickel and diming with incremental advantage is the only way I'll be able to answer this. Digging for the familiars here. Unfortunately, no luck. Gotta figure out what to discard here and how to navigate this game. Definitely some serious backpedaling right now. Even though the 4-point life advantage, that will be whittled away very quickly. Put Preordain here. Most likely going to do some... Oh, bottom. Didn't like what I wanted. Bounce land. Pass the turn. Oh, Eugene deciding to flicker the Augur of Bolas. Realizing that the 2/4 body of the Soul Migration. Won't affect the clock at all. He leaves up all of his mana and passes to me. I'm in a tough spot here with really no clear way out. Struggling, I decide to just hard cast a Mole Drifter, which is promptly counterspelled by Eugene, putting the writing on the wall that there's not much chance I'm surviving this. Another Ephemerate, getting even more value, more birds. Augur flickered again. Not seeing anything. Oh, and he rips a Ardent Elementalist off the top to most likely rebuy another Ephemerate. Oh man, this is looking ugly. Not too likely that I'll be able to survive this game. Eugene swinging for 8 in the air. Nothing I can do about it. Ephemerating his Ardent Elementalist. Passing the turn to me. Not many options here. Got a Recoil Archaeomancer, and it looks like a Memory Lapse. None of which is too good right now. The Recoil could buy some time bouncing some tokens, but I think I decide to cash in this Archaeomancer to pick back up a Prohibit. Got a Churn, gaining life along the way with the God Pharaoh's Faithful. Basically preventing the inevitable. It's very unlikely that I'll be able to survive this. Eugene hitting that Augur Golos again, getting even more value. Swinging for 8. He has lethal on board. Getting another Augur. Oh, and another Ephemerate. Not too much chance I'll be surviving this. Attempting to squabble into the game with another God Pharaoh's Faithful to offset all this life loss. But, oh. Passing with Fleet? Yeah. Okay. Delaying that Ephemerate with a Memory Lapse. But Eugene with another Ephemerate. Responding with a Recoil. Recoil, a niche card, returning target permanent to its owner's hand, then that player discards a card from their hand. Very powerful in a format with bounce lands, as you can bounce their bounce land and push them back very far behind. Fortunately, those spells were able to gain me more life and put 2 power back into Eugene's hand. Eugene promptly accruing more advantage by flickering his Ardent Elementalist with the Ephemerate, rebuying another Ephemerate. Oh, actually decides to get a Cleansing Wildfire. Wants to draw a card and declines to search for land. Is that possible? Yeah, they may search. They preferred to draw the Ephemerate off the top. That was Memory Lapsed. Not many options here. Looking at the yard for that Archaeomancer target. Deciding to cash in a Soul Manipulation. Picking back up the Sunscape Familiar. Casting the Familiar. Unfortunately, not gaining any life due to it being a white spell. But I've got to do something. Flashback Deep Analysis, which normally you'd lose 3 life in the process. But fortunately, the God Pharaoh's Faithful offsets some of that life loss. But it's not looking good. Eugene here showing that he's got a bolt in his yard. And now we're off to Game 3. Game 3, I'm on the play. Both keeping our 7s here. And looks like an okay hand. Just draw, go. Land, go from Eugene as well. Committing the Augur of Bolas. Finding a Cleansing Wildfire. He's already got his indestructible lands, so he's off to the races there. I tap out I just tap 3 mana to cast the Consult of the Necrosages. Target player draws 2 cards or target player discards 2 cards. Becomes very powerful when only paying 2 mana for this effect. Eugene cashing in the Cleansing Wildfire, targeting his Rustveiled Bridge, I believe. Getting a basic land into play, tapped, and drawing a card. Just chips in, passes off to me. Gain some more life with these tap lands and pass turn. Just waiting to get a familiar and get the ball rolling. Decide to cast the Archaeomancer, which gets promptly bolted. Another tap land there from Eugene. He's got his fistful of spells here. And thinking about leaving up Counterspell, decides to play the Dawnbreaker Cleric to get rid of that Archaeomancer, seeing that there's a Moiture Mire in play that can be bounced with a myriad of effects. I'm able to commit a Godpharaoh's Faithful to the board, as well as a Seagate Oracle to stop the ground beats, which is countered by Eugene, and Godpharaoh's Faithful taken out by that Galvanic Blast, which has Metalcraft, but it's enabled by all the tapped artifact lands that Eugene has. Very strong as well, not only being artifact land, but being indestructible to combo with that Cleansing Wildfire in the deck. Eugene now reaping more advantage with the Smol Drifter, leaving up the mana to Ephemerate, doing it all over again. Chipping in some damage here and passing with a full grip. Quite a board state to be facing down here. Gotta draw some more cards with that Soul Manipulation. Unfortunately not seeing anything good. And Eugene trying to see some more cards here. Opts for the Augur as opposed to just raw 2 cards. I guess when you're really looking for instant sorcery, it's the way to go. Finds that Ephemerate. Casts another Dawnbreaker Cleric, getting rid of my not Soul Manipulation, the Consult the Necrosages. Swinging in, knocking me down to 16, passing the turn. I'm trying to evoke a Mole Drifter here, leaving up ample mana for interaction. Don't hit a Ghostly Flicker, but I decide to snap the Mole Drifter, which Eugene promptly counterspells. Snap being practically free besides just the card in your hand. Very juicy target for a counterspell. I respond with a Memory Lapse, which Eugene ephemerates his Augur into a counterspell, but unfortunately only has 1 blue mana, so he's unable to counter the Memory Lapse. Trying to ephemerate, and I counter swiftly with a Prohibit. The upkeep Ephemerate can't be countered. I got no mana up, so he's able to still draw 2 cards off that Mole Drifter. Playing a tap land, mushing in, chipping away, almost at 10 life there. Oh, and he rips his red version of Archaeomancer, the Ardent Elementalist. Trying to figure out how to tap out here before he chooses his target. As expected, Ephemerate back to hand. Passes the turn off to me with a full grip and mana open. I'm left here with a lot of options. Unfortunately, no familiar in the equation, which makes everything a little bit worse. Like a lot worse, but still got this Seagate Oracle here, trying to get me close to what I need, and Godpharaoh's Faithful to help me survive longer. Unfortunately, still no familiar on my end. Eugene bolting the Godpharaoh's. Sending the Galv Blast straight to the dome, down to 9 life. It's really trying to end the game before I'm able to assemble anything here. Swings all out. I'm able to soak up a few damage. Fall to 6. And Eugene's trying to decide if he does a follow-up or just passes. Leaving up a whole heap ton of mana here. Threatening a lot of damage and knowing that he's got all this burn in his deck. Definitely a tough place to be in. Fortunately, Eugene lets me draw 2 off the Mole Drifter. But unfortunately, there's no good Ephemerate or Ghostly Flicker to follow up, so it go in the yard. Just a bounce land, bounce in the island, and not many options. Deploying the Sage Rose Denizen, which is countered just as a blocker. It's a 2/3. It's looking bad. Ephemerate getting back Galv Blast. Eugene putting a lot of burn in his hand here. Life total is definitely low. Blocking here to soak up some damage. Eugene knocking me down to 1. Does he have the bolt? Oh yeah, he's got the Ephemerate hitting that. I respond with the snap. Eugene countering it. The game's over. Very clean games.